So if you're anything like me, and chances are you're not, then Nurgle is your favorite of the Chaos Gods in Warhammer Total War. And if there's one thing that Warhammer 3 players can agree on, which there's not, it's that the Kugath campaign is an absolute disaster. Well, after decades of scientific research, countless experiments on unwilling participants, or at least dozens of hours banging my head against the wall playing Kugath because I love him so much, I can only conclude with unmistakable certainty that Creative Assembly is secretly a Tzeentchian cult. They want you to hate Nurgle. They want you to despise Nurgle. And above all else, for some unimaginable reason, they do not want you to play Nurgle. Let's cover just a few of the basics. First of all, Kugath may have migrated from the Chaos Wastes to the Dragon Isles, but his tech tree certainly didn't. Just a few examples. Early researching provides useless benefits for Chaos Waste climates and Kislev as an enemy, neither of which will even be a thing for Nurgle until at least mid-game. The Dragon Isles are also problematic in other ways. For whatever reason, Nurgle's plagues don't spread from one island to another, which is quite odd since historically ships were one of the main vectors for spreading disease. This seems like a strange choice, considering that spreading plagues is one of the most important unique mechanics for Nurgle. Moreover, while the climate of the islands is suitable, very soon a Kugath campaign will be forced into fighting in the mountains north where everything is unsuitable. That's assuming you get past Helman Gorst, who is one of the most annoying legendary lords to go up against in the early game, and can easily bottle Kugath up in the islands before he can even get started. On top of all that, Kugath is one of the few legendary lords that only starts with a minor settlement. In a game that's all about aggression and rapid expansion, Kugath has every handicap, from his starting position to the strengths and weaknesses of his units that steer a player towards a slower, more defensive, and necessarily more patient playstyle. See what I mean about CA secretly hating Nurgle? Or is it that they fear him instead? Many people would argue that Festus is actually the good way to play a Nurgle campaign. Now, I love Festus like I love my crazy Uncle Edgar, but there's something entirely too convenient about this supposition. And that's because, true to their Tzeentchian nature, CA seeks to confuse you, to make things seem the opposite of reality, to make you think Kugath is weak and boring and borderline unplayable, when in actuality his campaign is one of the most unique, thematic, and dare I say it, fun campaigns in the game. Let's start with the plague mechanic. It's one of the most thematic of any faction. It suits Nurgle perfectly, and it's both versatile and powerful without being overpowered. Sure, some plagues are stronger than others, but don't just pigeonhole them so casually. Most have situational benefits where they can be effective under the right circumstances. A good player will use different plague symptoms at different times. There's also a chaotic, unpredictable aspect to the spreading of plagues that hits the right vibe for players who like a bit of messiness. Next, we have the cyclical building evolution and devolution. No other factions have it. It takes some getting used to, and definitely has a level of complexity beyond the simple upgrading pattern of other factions. But none of that makes it bad, just unique, and again very thematic for Nurgle. It may appear weak on the surface, but I've never found it to play out that way in practice. Those cyclical buildings also have a creative way of feeding Nurgle's recruitment pool. This is yet another system that's unique to Kugath. Units are summoned into his armies instantly and at partial strength, providing an interesting trade-off and versatility that no one else gets. And the aforementioned limit to the recruitment pool is a limitation that some players will appreciate and others will hate, functioning to break players out of the habits of creating doom stacks of a single type of unit and using the same composition over and over for every army. I'm no expert in Warhammer lore, but having doomstack after doomstack of nothing but Sisters of Avalorn feels fairly unrealistic, not to mention boring. Not to worry, you won't find Kugath fielding army after army of nothing but great unclean ones, because the recruitment pool forbids it. Finally, revisiting that slower, defensive, more patient playstyle we discussed earlier, I think this is a welcome change of pace for a lot of players. A game is better when it accommodates different playstyles. I personally find my Kugath campaigns to stay challenging and fun much longer than most others. In short, the Kugath campaign plays far differently than any other, but that doesn't make it bad. Variety is one of the strengths of this game, and with a little effort this campaign can be one of the best. Covering the map in nasty diseases, conquering the Empire and Cathay with filthy, disgusting demons, what's not to like? Seriously though, it doesn't get much more thematic than that. Okay, maybe I've poured it on a little thick. My fanboydom for Nurgle is influencing this video, making me gloss over what are real flaws and exaggerating the things I like about Kugath's campaign. Even with that admission though, I know many people are turned off to playing it, mostly because of the general impression that community groupthink has created, and I'm simply suggesting that it's done a bit of a disservice to our beloved grandfather Nurgle. There are a lot of things to like, or at least to experience for yourself if you haven't already done so, or to give a second chance if you have. I'll go so far as to say you owe it to yourself to give Kugath another look. Play the campaign for all its messy exterior to discover that diamond in the rough, and you'd better hurry because who knows how it will change in Thrones of Decay. Thanks so much for listening, and remember, Grandfather Nurgle wants you to make him proud.